you so much for staying tuned in Smart 24 TV, and we do drive your business. My name is Anthony, and this is The Point. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Smart 24 TV and give us feedback. Also on our YouTube section, you can have the comment section rather on our YouTube channel, Smart 24 TV, for your comments on the show. Mr. Wera, Michael, we've talked about HIV and AIDS, and I think during the break you mentioned that this is something that has been, in people's ears, but it seems the listening hasn't been done because currently HIV is still an existent problem, and young people seem not to realize that. According to the way figures are going up, you can imagine 46 new infections daily. I saw that report sometime back last year. That's a very big number, like Ruth was mentioning. Even a single person acquiring HIV in this day and age where we have means, it's quite scary. What do you think is government's effort currently, or what should be government's effort currently towards the young people to see that we bring this to an end?
I think this should be a collective responsibility, not only government, because I think government has tried. Government has played its role for quite some time. It has talked to people. We have the Uganda AIDS Commission, and the president even decided to come up with a campaign to end AIDS by 2030. I don't really know whether everyone is following up on this initiative, but on very many occasions, I think I have been in meetings where we have engaged with different entities, including UNEPA. Remember this year we had a symposium at MOPS. Did UNEPA attend?
I was the host.
I remember. When I attended that event, I talked to a number of people. I remember a young kid from, I think, UNEPA. I interviewed her, and she was telling me about AIDS. I found someone from the UPDF. In the UPDF, they have a department of AIDS, a full department of AIDS. There are very many people who were there telling us about AIDS. But the youth, especially the youth in primary and secondary school, I think these organizations that are normally moving around telling people about AIDS are not going in these schools. There are schools right now that you can ask whether they have ever received any organization telling them about AIDS, and they tell you no. A full year, but no one has visited that school to tell them about what? About AIDS. And I think even the AIDS Commission has not gone down to these schools, engage them and tell them the dangers of what? The dangers of getting AIDS. Because for me, in many places where I go to, sometimes you try one day, move around town, go to the clubs, you'll find young girls. Young girls, these are the young girls that you'll find in clubs, and you don't even know where they go after these clubs. They go to attend parties, and after these parties, they go with all the men. I'm telling you, girls of today, girls of this generation, who will die more than the boys. And I don't know, I think UNEPA should tell us even the figures, the percentage of males and females who are dying of AIDS. I think the females are more than the males.
Yes.
So that is a very, very big problem.
And for us, Ms. wants to probably interject here.
I always get worried when I hear statements like girls of today. I think we should be thinking more in the line of why are the girls of today doing this?
That's where I was heading.
Because
that's where I was heading. That's where I was heading. Because trying to talk about why they are doing so, I cannot say that because I don't have enough money, I have to sleep with a guy who is giving me 10K or a guy who is buying me an iPhone. Because these young girls will sleep with guys because they want an iPhone. An iPhone that they'll always use to take photos, selfies. An iPhone. They want a guy who will like rent for them a house in Kampala. They want a guy who will take them to the beach and they enjoy such things. But it is very hard to find a girl who will go like sleep with a guy because she wants to get tuition.
They are there.
But just a few. If they are there, they're like 3%.
But you cannot rule that out.
Yeah, I cannot rule that out.
Yeah.
So I think government should try more. I can't say that government has tried, but it should do more. Like go back to these schools, engage these young students. Because we need to start with these young ones. Because we think these ones of the 2000, at least they understand something. But I think very many families have had patients. I've had victims of AIDS. If you have ever had a victim, I don't think you can take your life for granted. Some of us know, some of us have been in families where we have seen people with AIDS, people who have suffered seriously. And from childhood we know that I cannot play around because AIDS kills, because we saw and we know. Sometimes I happen to go around Bulago Hospital. There are wards that I go to, I look at people and I'm like, really, I can't mess up. I can't mess up my life. I can't just look at someone and I'm like, she's okay. This one is okay. On many occasions, there are events that I always attend. People give us free services like test for AIDS. People don't want to go for these tests. They don't want. They can even tell you, please, am I sick? Are you seeing me sick? Has anyone told you that I'm going to die? For me, I'm okay. People refuse to test. And I think this should be compulsory in all schools. No?
Yeah. Okay.
I think it should be compulsory. People should be tested as a must. Like for example, in places, there are some places that we go to. Like for example, if you want a passport, first test for AIDS. If you are traveling, first test for AIDS. I think the what?
Where are we putting choice? Because as a country, we have that right of consenting.
Yes.
And there shouldn't be mandatory testing.
Yeah.
My right to health, I should be able to exercise it by choosing to understand my HIV status. And if I'm not, that's the same thing I was saying. People are refusing to test for HIV because they are afraid of the outcomes. We live in a world where there is stigma and discrimination by the mere fact of someone knowing that you're HIV positive. A lot of people who are living with HIV are on denial. That's why you even find that we have very high numbers of people who test for HIV, but relatively fewer of those who are on treatment because of that denial. So unless we address those barriers, we shall keep seeing people refusing to test for HIV. We shall keep seeing people who are transmitting HIV because they cannot disclose their status to their partners. We shall keep seeing young people who are getting, I was actually looking at the reasons for young adolescent girls and young women to engage with people who are of higher, who are older than them. Sometimes it's an issue, it's actually an issue of harassment. We do know that those things do exist. We also know that the things of GBV do exist in our communities. Today I was in a meeting and young girls who were about 15, 16, 17 were pregnant, had children, contracted HIV because their parents could not afford to take care of them. So their only way out was to get married or sleep with someone else. So let's look at all those dynamics that are surrounding the reason as to why there are very high infections among this category.
Yeah, and I agree, Miss Awori, because if we don't address the issue that is driving these young women, young men into having unsafe sex, then we are not going to actually address the problem. And I think what she's trying to make clear is that young people definitely wouldn't want probably to get into bed with these men, but because sometimes the conditions under which they have been brought up, the conditions under which they have to survive, they have no option. That's their only way out.
But for how long shall we really accept, and for how long shall we be telling the world that we have our youth and they're deciding to sleep with men because their families are poor? For how long shall we continue speaking this? For how long shall we always say, give that an excuse that whoever gets AIDS, it is because of poverty, because she wanted this, because he wanted this? For how long shall we say this? Because it is something that we have said for quite some good time. Can't we as a country collectively sit and find a solution? A better solution than always telling people, giving excuses? Because I think we give these as excuses. Because how can you give an excuse that, I got pregnant by mistake? That is what that I always hear, that it was by mistake. But you sleep with someone who is not using a condom and then you say it was by mistake. Can that really be a mistake? Sleeping with someone without a condom? That can't be a mistake. You are doing something because of rushing, because maybe you don't know about it, the outcomes. But really, for me, I just feel bad that we are always telling people this happened because of poverty, because we don't have money, because my family cannot take good care of me, because I'm not at school, so I have to go and sleep with everyone. For me, I don't believe in that, and I think we should find a better reason.
Okay. Mrs. Awori, your conclusion on this matter?
Yes, just a conclusion on that matter. I agree with you.
Yes.
We should be at a level where we are addressing actually the issue. And to answer your question, we shall continue giving those that you call excuses for as long as we do not have policies that speak to the needs of young people, as long as we do not implement our policies that are supposed to be protecting young people, because Uganda has very many policies. We even have policies on sexual exploitation, on protecting children from sexual violence, but at what extent are we implementing them? We shall continue giving those excuses until we provide information to young people to be able to get and make informed decisions, and we shall continue to give those excuses until we empower the young people themselves to be able to say no, to be able to execute and enjoy their rights if responsibly, but to also be able to seek the services and which services we have made available. Because sometimes, yes, sometimes you lose it. You sleep with someone and you be like, okay, maybe I should access PrEP or PEP, but you go to a facility and it's not there. So until we make all these services provided to them accessible, until we have the policies in place, until we implement the policies, until we give them the information, we shall continue singing those so-called excuses.
Interesting. Thank you for those insights. And this drives me to our next discussion on government programs and policies that have been designed for young people, especially the vulnerable. Now, we know clearly unemployment is there, and you're always lucky to come out of school and get a job if you ever get one, or you end up hustling around Kampala, selling clothes and so on, and running around on the streets. However, government has put in place some programs in this effort to support especially the vulnerable young people. One of them was the Youth Livelihood Program, the YLP, and this was a government program government financed program that was designed as one of the interventions to respond to the high unemployment rate amongst the young people. It covered over 112 districts, including the capital, Kampala Capital City Authority, and Cabinet approved at least 265 billion. That's approximately $100 million for the first 5 years of implementation. That's 2013-2017. Now, when you look at the objectives of this program, you're looking at, especially they were targeting vulnerable groups that we are actually talking about. The people who have gone to school and probably dropped out, the people living with HIV and AIDS, people living with disability, permanent disability, people who have actually completed secondary school but remain unemployed, or tertiary institutions but remain unemployed. We know those are even more. However, this program seems not to have picked momentum before even the finishing of that period. Later on, I don't know what's happening currently, but right now I don't know if we can still speak about the Youth Livelihood Program. Then later on we have the Emyoga, which is a new term probably to mean the same thing. And the Emyoga this time came around and they were trying out still with the same people, giving them saloons, carpentry works and so on. But still, there's still a lack of momentum to see the impact that it has had on the young people. Mr. Wera, what do you think is lacking when it comes to government programs and the young people's participation and the impact they have to create?
First of all, the program that you just talked about, the Youth Livelihood, was created with an intention of empowering those vulnerable groups. But I think sometimes the timing of these projects is not always good, because sometimes if you launch a project almost close to elections, you will create another mindset in people. So whatever you give them, they think you're giving them money to go and enjoy. When you give them cows, people are now married because of the youth livelihood. They got cows, took them as dowry. People got a lot of money. People got money. Someone receives, a group receives like 30 million. They divide it amongst themselves and they all go marry. And these are revolving funds. These are funds that were supposed to be taken back so that some other groups can also benefit from them. But what has happened, just last week I was moving around Musoga region, trying to engage all those 11 districts about these projects, and many of them were telling me that the program has not worked so well, just because of the timing and because of these youth who think that this money that they gave them was an appreciation by the president because they voted him or the president wanted him to be voted. So they ended up mismanaging the funds, and some other leaders, the politics in the money. You know, this money goes to these villages, and the youth groups are supposed to receive the money. You find that youth groups in a certain village have not received the money, but the money has been received by a very powerful man from the next village. So someone from the next village receives on behalf of the youth of this village. So the youth of this village end up not getting the money. So this money, it is only a few groups that have benefited, and those groups that have benefited have really got what they wanted. Because I met groups of farmer groups, youth that are farmer groups in Ujiri. I met groups in Iganga, who are in carpentry. I met some other groups in Kamuli that are also in carpentry, and these groups have really benefited from the funds, and they have really been empowered. They have benefits. Some got motorcycles, and their motorcycles are working. So some groups benefited, but some groups did not benefit, because in some districts you could find that the person who is in charge, and that is the CDO, when a group requests for like 30 million, a CDO will give them like 25 and tells them this 5 is my facilitation. So many of these leaders, people who are meant to guide the youth, have misbehaved and taken all this money. So that's why you see very many youth have not benefited from the youth livelihood, and it is the reason as why the president saw it, right, and was like, no, we should stop this and let everyone come to Myoga and the PDM. In Myoga just started, but very many people have benefited from Myoga. Very many youth have benefited from Myoga. I have found very many success stories in Musoga region and the Bugisu sub-region. All the projects I've visited, some are in fishing, some in produces, some have borders, and some are in agriculture.
What was different with Myoga? Because you talked about the timing, and I think Myoga also came around 2020.
Yes, Myoga also came in a bad timing. Yes. Myoga also came in a bad timing, but at least this time.
Is it a bad timing, or it's actually a strategic timing?
No, I don't think it is strategic. It is not strategic. It is not for politics. For me, I'm sure it is not for politics. Okay. But I don't know sometimes how these projects are brought up, but I don't think it is politics. Okay. Though it came almost close to elections, they have taken it seriously this time around, because there are very many agreements that these people make when they are getting this money, and if you misbehave, people have been arrested and they will be arrested. There is a place where I went to, and it was the leaders. It is the leaders who are not paying back the money in some districts. So it must be around Iganga. When in Kamuli, when leaders don't want to pay the money that they got in Myoga, they are supposed to be bringing back this money, but the leaders circle has failed to bring back this money. But government also has very many programs other than the youth livelihood program. We have the industrial hubs right now. Industrial hubs have been have been put in all the regions. In Mbale, we now have so far have over 200 graduates who graduated in these industrial hubs. These people, all the youth are supposed to go and study for 6 months. Tailoring, construction, mechanics, and very many other courses. You are supposed to go and study for 6 months, you leave, and then others come. So in Mbale, we are now in the second cohort. In Jinja, it is starting soon. We already have the 200 students. Agulu, the 200 have already graduated, and 200 more are going. That is a program that started late last year, the presidential industrial hubs, and they will be in all regions. So youth are supposed to always go. Every youth who wants to go and have a skill, they are supposed to go for these skills in the industrial hubs. Then we have the innovation hubs. We have innovation hubs for the youth who have innovations. Government constructed an innovation hub here in Nakawa at the School of ICT, the government School of ICT. The innovation hub is always available for anyone that has an innovation. It is a place with internet. Everyone is allowed to come and make use of that innovation hub, come up with innovations. Innovations are being funded by the Ministry of ICT, and I know very many youth in Kampala here have benefited from the innovation funds that are being given to the various groups by the Ministry of ICT. So all these programs have been created by government just to empower the youth. The active youth. We have the girl child. You know, it used to be only it used to be a presidential initiative for the girl child only. And some of us were not happy, especially me. I was not happy. I wrote several opinions, and I was like, yeah, it is my government, but I'm not happy. We don't only have girls. You know, these girls have become like, I don't know, they want to take everything. Everyone thinks of a girl. For us, we are ignored as men. Everyone thinks of a girl. Boy child has been ignored everywhere. Even the girl child has decided to ignore a boy child. Yes. So I was like, now, why do you only think about a girl child initiative? Yet men are very many. Boys are very many. They are idle. So last year, I think the president thought about it, and now the initiative changed to the presidential initiative for girl and boy child. So now the boy child has also started benefiting from the initiative.
Yes.
And there are very many centers in every sub-county. Is it every sub-county? Here, in every division, we have a center where the boy and girl child are being trained. And these are very many. I have moved to Nakawa, I moved to Lubaga, Nakawa division, and even just right here near Parliament, we have the initiative where these students are. So I think government has come up with very many initiatives. It's only some leaders who are politicizing this and maybe not enabling their people in their various areas to go and make use of this initiative. Because sometimes you go in an area and you tell people, do you know that we have an initiative here where all these boys and girls are supposed to go and get skills, and they tell you we don't know about that. And you wonder why. Yet in every district, these politicians and the technical people are supposed to always communicate, go on radio and communicate and tell people about the government programs. That's why GCIC has come up with the initiative of moving to all areas. Wherever we go, we are always on radios. Last week we were on Smart. For me, whenever I'm in Ginger, I'm always on Smart FM. Yeah. Smart FM, you know Smart FM, you don't know Smart FM. Smart FM is Smart TV, yes. The other side. So all the time, I'm on Smart FM, trying to talk to the people in the Eastern region, telling them about these programs, and I always get good feedback. Because whenever your government communicates, people can really know and understand and make use of these initiatives. But if government doesn't communicate, that's when you find that you will find someone is very idle in the village, doesn't have any skill,
And they're not trying to look for one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like government has tried its level best to move to these places, the villages and towns, to tell people about these skills projects. Yeah, and I think it has somehow helped decrease on the unemployment.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Wera. Miss Ruth, we want to, before we forget the narrative of the girl child and the boy child, the government programs, especially geared towards vulnerable people like those living with HIV, have they reached out? Because I know now you, as the leadership position you hold in this organization, you interact with these young people. Have they actually been able to realize that government is actually putting up these programs? Have they benefited? Has there been impact felt?
All right, thank you. I'm very happy, Anthony, that before becoming a leader of the organization, I worked with the community itself. So to start off with the youth development, youth livelihood program, I feel like it was a good initiative. A lot of things were mentioned in the project paper, in the project document, including the key performance indicators that were set out by the government itself. And the mere fact that most of them were not realized speaks a lot about the program itself. To give you an experience, while we were, I think it was in the eastern region, where you are from, we worked with a group of young people living with HIV in one of the projects. And one of the things that we encouraged them to do was to apply for this program. And their main issue was that, Ruth, the application procedure is really, really stringent. The requirements, you have to register, you have to have these documents. We are talking about a community of people who are disadvantaged. So you find that sometimes most of them give up along the way because of the whole procedure being tedious. I understand it's because of checks and balances to ensure that the funds are going to the right people. But I feel like this again has been a harbor to people who are supposed to be benefiting from the program itself. So you realize that some of them were not able to benefit from these programs. I, for one, can say that I think only one group from those that we were working with, over hundreds and hundreds, managed to get this money. And all of them will tell you the truth, even when you get the money. And I'm very happy that you talked about it. Some of the officers on ground actually deduct the funds and you don't receive the actual amount. Yet, remember, it's a rotational fund. You're expected to return it in a country where a few businesses live to see their next birthday. So that, first and foremost, there are very many high chances of these businesses failing, which calls for more capacity building and continuous mentorship, because most of these people are new to business. Secondly, it's an issue of, I received 10 million, but in the documents I received 20 million, and that's what I'm expected to take back. So all of those, most of the people, when they weigh the pros and cons, they are safer disassociating with the program. And just like you also said, I'll give you an example of Emioga itself. Just like you said, and I'll agree with Anthony, sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's strategy to bring out these funds at a particular time, so it's political. And when you do not associate with a particular political affiliation,
at least that's the perception.
Yeah, that's the perception. You would rather not associate with the program itself to keep your loyalty to your program, which is sometimes not the right thing to do. But we live in a world where it's all about competition, who is supporting who. More so in the previous 2 election periods, it has been really tight with young people being really interested in politics more than before. So anything that is targeted, or anything that seems to be targeted or political, most of them would rather de-associate, which was to their disadvantage. If we are talking about the young people living with HIV themselves, I would actually look at how do we position them and how do we work with the different community development officers. I'm very happy that where we managed to get the one group to benefit from the funds, it was because of the relationship that we had with the community development officer. But how many young people living with HIV who may be not associated or not members of UNIPA that were struggling to benefit from these funds? Then when I go on the issue of girls versus boys empowerment,
I think we're going to come there. That's a pretty long discussion that I think we need to give more time. So let's take a very short break, Miss Awori, and we return. This is The Point. My name is Anthony, and of course today we are discussing youth especially the vulnerable ones, and how they can be part of a sustainable development. And my name is, of course, Anthony. But get to our Twitter very quickly and get to comment on our social media platforms so we can have that feedback. We return shortly. Just don't touch your dial.